Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is Saturday, March 4th, and you're back again for another edition of Anything Goes with Ordinary People podcast with Chris, me, of course, and Jimmy.
What's up? How's it going?
Jimmy, what's going on? Hey, we got kind of a banger tonight, but before we get to that, I wanted to tell you it was a shit show in our hometown today.
Yeah, it was. It was everywhere.
Oh my God.
Sure.
And we have a company, and for those of you who don't know, I know there's probably not a lot of people in yet because I just went live, but there is a company called Sheetz. It's a gas station / I don't know, convenience store / restaurant kind of combo thing. If you don't have one where you are, it's like a Wawa or a bigger version of a 7-Eleven in most places. But they just had a really bad day. And Jimmy, you know about one or two of them, but you don't know about the third one.
The third? I mean, I heard they're all over the place.
Yeah. So the first one was a Sheetz gas truck exploded on our highway, which, by the way, that happened at 3:35 this afternoon, and the highway is still closed.
Oh wow!
Because we just tried to, we on our way home at a little after 7 o'clock. That whole section of the highway is still closed. They haven't even lifted the truck off the road yet. It was a fatality. The driver actually died, so they probably have a bunch of things going on with that. The second thing was the Sheetz right here in Walkersville, where we live, had some sort of leak, whether it's a gas leak or something. They had the last set of pumps roped off, and the fire department was there. And then third, Megan and I stopped at a Sheetz in another town not too far from here, where we went to a gun raffle today. And some jackass, and I hate to say it because I'm a native New Yorker, but this jackass almost hit us and hit like 3 or 4 other cars. It backed out. It started pulling out of a parking spot. It pulled about halfway out, and then it turned completely sideways, blocking 3 other parking spots. And then it just pulled out in front of like all the cars coming out of the gas station and us. And then it backed into another spot. So, and of course, Megan was reaching for the window lock. So I couldn't roll down the window and scream at him and ask him if he was completely dumb. But yeah, so 3 issues today. I'm going to avoid Sheetz for a couple of days just till this kind of blows over, because I don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah, it sounds like an absolute mess, and yeah, terrible tragedy. But yeah, all I saw, everybody reporting the major smoke, like, in everybody's camera view, showing this crazy like fire that's going on everywhere, and it like leaked into neighborhoods.
Yeah.
The sewer system. So like there's like fire going through the sewer system and burning up other homes and whatnot. So I don't know what all that chaos, but you know what it actually led to.
So before we start, just so anybody who's viewing knows, whether you're viewing on YouTube or you're viewing on Facebook or you're viewing on StreamYard, however you're viewing, I can't see in the chat who's actually. I can see your comments, but I can't see who it is. Okay, all I can see is, and you don't have to give me your name. That's not why I'm saying this. I'm just telling you so that if you make a comment and I say, okay, we had a user who asked the question X, the reason I'm not using your name is because I can't see it.
Yeah, and I can monitor the live stream also on Facebook, so I can see who comments and what they say. So,
and I see we have a couple of comments already coming in. Let's go Chiefs. Yeah, whatever. It's your decade. I'll give it to you. All right. So we do have a special guest tonight. We often talk, Jimmy and I talk a lot of politics. And one thing that we talk about a lot is, crime, law and order, and those types of things. So we have a guest tonight who is a bounty hunter in Missouri. And we're going to talk to him about general bounty hunting. I have some questions for him, and I'm sure that'll spur Jimmy to ask some questions too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can go a whole bunch of different ways, with this kind of thing. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream, Mr. Dale Bales. Now, we don't have the budget to get Doug the bounty hunter, but we do have the budget to get Dale the bounty hunter.
I'm the Dollar Tree version. It's okay.
Hey, Dale, so now I hear some echo.
That's probably. Is that better?
That is better. Thank you.
Okay. I moved the mic away. That's better.
So, Dale, welcome to the show. Obviously, you know me and you've met Jimmy here prior to the show. One thing that I know a lot of people have like a false sense of the job of being a bounty hunter. And, because what they see on TV is often kind of a glorification, I think.
Of course.
Of the job. So why don't you give us like really kind of like what is like really the routine on just like a routine? And we're not getting into the this person hasn't shown up to court thing yet, but just routinely when somebody gets arrested and they come to you, what's the process?
Well, there's a couple different. The first one I'll do is if. Who can't hear me?
We got you.
We got you. We can hear you.
Okay. So let's say someone gets arrested. They get caught drunk driving, for example. Let's use that because that's one of the most common ones. They get arrested. They get taken to the jail. And in every single jail cell, there is a list that is the bonding agent list. And in Missouri, we have the most bondsmen per county out of, I think, every state that can bond. There is a lot of bondsmen here in Missouri, which is not a good thing for our industry, but it is what it is. And they pick someone on that list, and every month that list rotates by company. So, like, there's 5 agents in my company, and if we're on the top of the list this month in March, next month we will be at the bottom of the list. So it just rotates through the list. They choose a bondsman on that list to call. They call them. They answer, they don't answer. If they don't answer, they just go on to the next person down the list. And generally the rule of thumb is if I'm at the bottom of the list and my phone's ringing in the middle of the night, one of the two things is happening. Either A, they're not bondable, as in it's what we call in the industry a trash bond. A, they like to run. B, whatever. But let's say I decide to take the bond. They call me, I answer the phone, and I'm like, yes. If it's a small piddly bond, I tell them my minimum, and I'm like, all right, do you have a cosigner? Do you have money? All the obvious things. If it's just a piddly bond, I'm talking anything under $1,000. Now, when it gets higher up in the amounts, I've written bonds everywhere from $250. I've written $500,000 bonds. Now, the higher the money goes is the higher inherent the risk is. So let's say their bond is a $50,000 bond. I'm obviously going to ask more questions of where do you live? Have you lived here all your life? Where do you work? How long have you worked there? Once, let's say I'm satisfied. I get all the answers. They have the money. Sweet. Then before I even leave my house or leave wherever I'm at, I say, okay, you say you have a cosigner. I need you to call your cosigner, and your cosigner needs to call me. We'll set everything up, and you'll be out when you're out. I try to tell people, don't call me again. If we've already talked, don't call me again. You can't do anything more for yourself while you're in jail.
Mm-hmm.
I need to speak to the cosigner because they're the ones that hold the power to get you out. And I get them out. I have a whole slew of paperwork they need to fill out. They fill out all their paperwork. I take their picture, and I tell them, it's been nice meeting you, but I hope to never see you again. That if they do everything they're supposed to do, they'll never hear from me. They'll never see me again. And here in Missouri, we are not bound by the exact percentage we charge for a bond. There's some states, I think Tennessee is one of those. I'm not 100% sure. They can only charge 10%. And they have to charge 10%. Like, they can't, on a $1,000 bond, when the 10% is $100, they can't say, oh, we're going to let you out for 5%. We're going to let you out for $50. In Tennessee, they can't do that. In Missouri, we can let them out for any denomination of money as long as it's not free.
Right. So
even if story comes to mind, I had a buddy's son that got arrested for theft of a firearm. And it was a $10,000 bond, and he didn't have any money at the time, but it was a buddy of mine, and I knew he wasn't going to run. I knew they were good for the money. but legally I can't go up to the jail and transactionally get his son out for no money because we're regulated by the Department of Insurance. And if I write down on my paperwork that I got no money, they think something nefarious is going on.
Gotcha.
You know, they did me a favor, so I did them a favor. So I had him give me a $20 bill. And I said I could do it for $20. But we can charge any amount. So if it's a riskier bond, if they don't have a cosigner, you know, there's so many factors that can come into it being risky.
Sure.
And then we can charge, I think I have a minimum of $250 across the board. I don't care anything, you know, up to a $2,500 bond, then it goes up. But if you call me with $1,000 bond, you're paying me $250 to get out.
Gotcha. So, okay, so now you've gone and you've bonded them out. So I think this is where a lot of times the fallacy of TV starts coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
What are the steps that you have to take as a bounty hunter before? So, okay, they don't show up to a court date. That's I think that's probably generally the most actionable part for you is they have a court date. That once you bond them out, they get a court date. They don't show up for that court date. What is your initial reaction to that? I mean, obviously trying to get in contact with them to find out why, or do you go right after them and that's when you take them back?
Okay, so when I first started bonding 4 years ago, my initial reaction was, oh crap, I'm gonna have to pay this money. Like I freaked out. Like I was very new, I was very green at it. I freaked out. And so I'm running to the courthouse to get what we call a certified copy of the bond. So when I write a bond, a copy of that bond gets sent to the courthouse. And we have a copy of it, but ours is not actionable. Once they miss court or for any litany of reasons, which I'll get into later, they miss court, the judge get notified of a forfeiture. So our office gets notified, hey, John Doe didn't go to court. Your forfeiture date is March 23rd at 9 a.m. So essentially what that's telling us is they now have a warrant for well, they don't even have to have a warrant. That's the thing that's great about bondsmen is you do not have to have a warrant through the police department or through NCIC for me to come pick you up. So my warrant is I go to the courthouse, I get a copy of the bond sheet that I wrote that has all their information on it, and the court clerk stamps it with the state seal and says it's legal, it's from the judge, everything's good. And then after that, I'll immediately call the cosigner. Because a lot of our situations, now this is something that is not depicted on TV because why would it be? It's not good TV. I call the cosigner, I'm like, hey, John Doe didn't show up for court. What can we do to satisfy this? 9 times out of 10, I got, oh my goodness, he didn't show up for court. Let me call you right back. And then I get a call back. Hey, he didn't show up to court. He had a flat tire. His kid was sick. You know, I got a lot of them over COVID. He had COVID, you know, obviously I don't know if any of them were true. And so then my next step is, okay, well, here's kind of your choices. Either you can meet me right now. I can go, you know, I'll place you in handcuffs. No BS. I'll cuff you in the front and we'll go to the jail. I'll turn you in and then I'll bond you back out. A lot of times they'll deal with that. I said our second option, because I don't know if you know this, but most criminals are broke.
Oh, no. Really?
Most criminals are broke. They don't have the money to fork out for another $1,000 in bonds.
Right.
So an option I can use on the very first court appearance, and if they are not have a history of FTAing, which in our and that's failure to appear. If they don't have a history of that, I can generally take them to the court at the first next bench date of their judge, present them to the court, and say, hey, John Doe's very sorry he missed court last week. Us as a bonding company, we are prepared to stay on the bond and accept liability if you would just reinstate the bond. 9 times out of 10, when I go and I have a very great relationship with the marshals in all the counties. I have a very great working relationship with all the judges. And 9 times out of 10, on the first time they mess up, they will recall the warrant.
Gotcha. So just before we move on a little bit, we've got a couple questions in the chat. So somebody asked, if I get arrested, can I pay you as a bondsman in COD points?
Okay, I'll give you one question. You know who asked that question.
I absolutely know who asked that question.
No, you cannot. I do take trades in monetary value, gold coins, anything that's worth money. Anything I can take to a pawn shop and sell. I cannot go sell COD points.
And then I'm guessing that the same person asked the other questions that are in here.
Yes, I'm reading the comments. It's the same.
So that's pretty funny.
But
we are going to talk a little bit about Patty Mayo, because I want people to understand the difference between reality and, YouTube.
As long as I am not looped into the same boat as him, I'm fine talking about him. But I've had so many people are like, "Oh, you're like Patty Mayo. You're just like Patty Mayo." And I'm like, "No, I am not."
No, I actually mean business.
Yeah, I actually can do my job. He cannot.
All right. So at what point? At what point do you? So something else that people need to understand about actual bonding is you don't need a warrant to go kick somebody's door in.
Okay, on that, yes, you are correct, but there are stipulations to that fact. I can't. Let's say, for example, let's use your family as an example. I know. Let's say Gabe got a warrant for his arrest. I bonded him out. Everything's good. I know he lives in your home. I know that he stays there. Your address is the address on the cosigner form, the bond form, and the court has your address. All I need to kick in your door is a signed certified bond from the court. I don't need anything else. I don't need to see him. I don't need to know he's there. I don't need to know anything. Not that anyone in their right mind would kick in your door, but you get what I'm saying. Is I don't need any actionable intel if that is the address on the bond. Gotcha. Now let's say Gabe's like, I know I have a warrant. Chris is going to kick my butt. I'm going to go stay at Jimmy's house. I cannot go to Jimmy's house and kick in Jimmy's door just because Chris told me or Jane Doe down the street told me Gabe is at Jimmy's house. I can't do that because Jimmy's house is not. Now, I can kick Jimmy's door, but there's more check marks that have to be checked before I can kick in his door. I have to know 100% without a shadow of a doubt, risking my own freedom, that he is inside Jimmy's house. Because if I go to kick in Jimmy's door and Gabe was out buying a taco at that point, he's not in the house, I just committed burglary. I just broke into someone's house without a reason. And the Taylor versus Tainter, which is the court case that gave bondsmen all their power and all their actionable stuff, it states that we can kick in if we have 100% without a reasonable doubt that he's in there. Now, let's say I'm on a stakeout and I am watching Jimmy's house, or I'm watching your house, and Jimmy's your next door neighbor from a couple doors down, and I watch Gabe walk out of your house and walk into his house. I can go kick in Jimmy's door because I just watched him walk in that house. But we also don't. So I've had a couple, not going to name the county, but it is a surrounding county to where I live. Sheriff called me at 3 a.m. in the morning and said, "Hey, you got so-and-so on bond paperwork, correct?" I say, "Yes, I do." And they're like, "Okay, we'll get a judge to sign a certified copy of the bond. And will you come kick in this door for us?" Which to most of the people listening or watching, we're going to be like, why don't the cops just kick in the door?
Because they don't have a warrant.
Because the cops don't have a warrant. Cops don't have a let's just say it's a misdemeanor theft. The cops have to meet a certain burden of proof before a judge will sign off on a warrant for them to kick in their door. And now, if it's a felony no-knock warrant, they'll kick in the door all day long. but they'll call me and they're like, hey, I know you got so-and-so on bond. We suspect him in this, this, and this. We, and 9 times out of 10, like I did with the person I'm talking about, I called this person and I said, hey, I just want to let you know that this is what has been asked of me. I'm not going to obstruct their investigation, but, how would you like to proceed with this? Because if you either A, hang up on me or, disrespect me, I'm just going to come kick your door in and we're just going to deal with it. And that person was like, well, if you come to my house, I'll open the door. You can place me in handcuffs and you can bring me outside.
That's kind of and again, not all the ones that you're going to see on TV are going to be the ones where they're, sending the big dude with the body armor running full speed through the front door. And generally that's not the case.
Okay. 90% of bounty hunts before I'll tell you how I got started in bounty hunting and being a bondsman, period. My first boss came to our neighborhood and was looking for a lady and searched my mother-in-law's house for this lady. And obviously the lady wasn't there or anything, but I got to talking to the guy and he was like, yeah, I need more guys. And that's how I got involved in bounty hunting. But I thought before, obviously I'm like everyone else on the planet, I've watched every episode of Dog the Bounty Hunter ever. I thought he was the coolest person ever. I've actually met Dog the Bounty Hunter in real life. I've met his son Leland, and on the same thing, his son Leland's the real deal. Leland is the real deal. But Dog the Bounty Hunter is about 4'2", 4'5". He is short. And I guess they say never meet your heroes. He was just, obviously he was a hero in my industry when I first started doing it. And I didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. But you watch the videos and everything in the movies of him doing bounty hunts. It's all action. It's all go, 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 go. It's them running. It's them speeding through neighborhoods. It's them yelling at co-signers, threatening to take away houses. No, it's not like that at all. For every bounty hunt, if I get a name on my desk, hey, we need to go pick up Jane Doe, I'm going to spend 10 hours researching this chick, which means I'm going to sit right here at my computer and just deep diving into this person's life for 10 hours. Then I'm going to spend another couple hours on the phone trying to find her. And then I'm going to go sit in my truck for 12, 13 hours staring at the windshield trying to find her. And then the actual moment of the bounty hunting that everyone is revered and thinks is so cool or hates, either way, lasts probably about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Out of days of hunting, days of being away from family, days of just being tired and dealing with BS, the actual bounty hunting that's publicized and everyone sees on TV lasts about 2 minutes.
Yeah. So can you, as a being licensed in Missouri, can you go across state lines and bounty hunt?
Certain states.
They have reciprocity.
Every state has their own. If you look at it in the very way that the law is written from the Supreme Court, yes, I should be able to go to any single state and pursue my bounty across state lines and bring them back to the home court's jurisdiction. But there's certain states like, well, there's one we were just talking about the other day. Kansas, for example, our neighboring state, Kansas. If I go to Kansas, yes, I can go to Kansas. I can hunt in Kansas, but I cannot hunt alone. I have to have a licensed Kansas bounty hunter with me.
Gotcha.
To maintain hunting of, the Kansas laws. Every state is different. Just like Illinois. I am allowed to go into Illinois, not as a bounty hunter, as I am a civilian at that point. I can track my fugitive. I can skip trace my fugitive. I can locate my fugitive. I can risk approaching my fugitive and talking to them and getting them to come back to Missouri willingly, which I've got a story for you. We've done that. And second, I make eyes on them. And if it is a felony warrant that is listed in NCIC, which is the national database for warrants and everything, and then I can call the local law enforcement officers and tell them, hey, John Doe's here. He has a warrant for drug trafficking out of Boone County, Missouri. 9 times out of 10, the local law enforcement agents will attempt to take into custody, and then my hands are done. My hands are washed. I have nothing, no part of it anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you can, if they come willingly, you can extradite them, is what you're saying.
Okay, no one is ever going to come willingly if you tell them the truth. I'm going to tell you something. I have a real big problem. I try not to lie in my personal life because I lie so much in my professional life. Bondsmen are paid and professional liars.
Yeah.
When it comes to people running. Sure. Now, when I'm first bonding you out, I'm 100% straight up with you. I'll straight tell you how it is, and I'll tell you what's going on. But the one in Illinois, me and my boss went to Illinois. We had to leave all our firearms at home because obviously it's Illinois. And we got to Illinois. We located our fugitive, and we we put on an Emmy-winning performance. And we told the guy, hey, man, this paperwork, you signed it wrong. You dated it wrong. We need you to fix it. And he was like, well, I can't fix it. And he was like, well, we're like, you need to come. My boss was like, you need to come across to the Missouri line to legally sign this. Bail bonds is illegal in Illinois, so you can't sign bail bond paperwork in Illinois. And no one maybe find out, but if they do ever find out, it'll be thrown out of court. We need you to come to the Missouri line over into Missouri and sign this paperwork. So my boss took him to a truck stop on the other side of the Missouri, met him at a truck stop on the other side of Missouri line. His wife had brought him. He got out and had him on the hood of his truck signing the bond paperwork. And then he hooked him up and arrested him and brought him back to Missouri.
Nice. Sounds fun.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that the question is like, you guys do take big risk. You know, obviously you're putting money up for these people.
Yeah.
And you know, and again, you're not dealing with people that are, you know, the most upstanding citizens in most cases, or most trustworthy, I should say, in most cases.
On the trustworthy part, I have a statement that I have lived by the whole time I've been a bondsman and a bounty hunter is I trust everyone, but I verify everything.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I'll trust what you're saying, but I got to verify it.
Yeah. And so, okay, so we get through that, and then we're going to get to a couple of these questions. Somebody wanted me to ask why I lost it. Why you never bond out on a relative?
I know who asked that question, and he's kind of a dick for saying it. But so, you've heard me talk about him. My wife's father is a recovering drug addict. And I say recovering because I don't know his exact status right now. I don't know if he's actively using or not. But I had bonded him out, and he failed to go to court, and I had warrants for his arrest. And it was very sticky to bond out a relative because then you have family involved. You have I was lucky that it was my wife's father, and she was sick of his crap. And I had to go into my own house and arrest my father-in-law.
Gotcha. So what is your, and we'll continue on with the process thing, but I wanted to get into also, what was your favorite bond? Like the best one you've ever done?
Okay. Now I have, my wife is the best wife ever. You sent me the list of topics we were going to talk about, and she literally wrote me a cheat sheet and answers to all of it. So what do you mean by best bounty? Like the most enjoyable? Or
yeah, most exciting, the most gratification when you finished it.
That would be that one.
Which one?
Number one.
Oh, number one. Okay, so I had a neighbor who had asked me to bond out their roommate.
Mhm.
And I bonded out their roommate, and we became friends with the person I bonded out. We were all friends, everything was good. And then the said roommate asked me to bond out her boyfriend. I bonded out her boyfriend. And he ended up failing to go to court. And we hunted him for a week or so, couldn't really get anywhere. The girlfriend was at Walmart, and we got to Walmart, and he's trying to back out of the driveway. We see him, we have warrants, we're going for him. And I throw my truck in park, jump out, run, and I jumped on the hood of the truck. There's body cam footage of it and everything. I jump and I spread eagle onto the hood of this guy's truck. I mean, the guy was running on $4,500 of my money. I'm not letting him get out of my sight. And the reason it is the best is because my boss's wife at that time, we got him stopped. He backed, but he threw his truck in reverse and was driving around the parking lot with me on the hood. And my boss had a 2010 F-150 that was lifted probably 15 inches on 48-inch boggers, like big, massive truck. And he pulled up behind the guy, and the guy almost took out his rear bumper. And we got him stopped, got him took out, got him on the ground, got him handcuffed. And this lady, she's probably 5'6", rack from here to King, reminds me of Beth from Dog the Bounty Hunter, just big old girl, but not fat, just like, and she lost her mind on this fugitive and just started screaming and screaming and screaming. You almost hit my truck. You're gonna, I'm gonna add charges. But the reason it's so satisfying is this guy owed me $450, and he always said he had no money.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm searching him to put him in jail, I reach in his pocket and pull out a wad of money. And I said, I thought you didn't have any money. I don't. It looks like you do now.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people would have just took the wad of money. I took my $450, gave the rest to the cop, and he was fighting and arguing. And as I was searching him, he had 3 little baggies of methamphetamine on. And when we find that, we can know that's out of our hands. We're done. We keep them in custody, keep them handcuffed, but we have to call local law enforcement at that point, and they show up and they took him into custody. So it was easy because we didn't have to transport him, and we didn't have to wait at the jail and get paperwork and wait and all that. He literally, CPD pulled up and they asked what happened. We told him. They transferred my handcuffs off, put their handcuffs on, and charged him with 5 new charges.
There you go. Easy day for you. You got your money and he went to jail.
I know, right? That's why it's the most satisfying.
Okay, so now how about the worst? And by worst, I mean excruciating. It can be time consuming. It can be painful because you got run over. It can be you got shot with pepper balls. It can be whatever.
So this is I can't legally say their names.
Yeah, I don't want you to.
I hunted Jane Doe. She was my second bond I'd ever wrote. It was a $4,500 bond. I got paid $100 up front on payments. They were going to pay me $500 total. I never saw another penny. So I got paid. Now keep in mind I got paid $100. Okay. She didn't go to her first court date. This person was on drugs very heavily. She was a very smart and savvy criminal. And she frequented in a place, it was a local motel that was for all the drug users, and it was a fairly big motel. We hunted this girl for 7 months. And the things that would make it so frustrating is we would sit out there all night and all day, out in front of this hotel, watching, waiting. We'd have snitches telling us, yes, she's here. She's in this room. We'd go open that room. She's not there. Like months of this over and over and over again. And while we were there, the things that would make it frustrating is we'd be, oh, she's in room. So we'd all mobilize, bulletproof vests, running. And the reason we reacted that way is she had sent me Facebook messages stating, the first bounty hunter I see, I'm going to blow away. Like, you know, so it was nerve wracking in that point. And she was facing prison time. It wasn't just she was going to go to jail for a misdemeanor. She was going to prison for years when she got caught. And she would walk. I know this now. I actually spoke with her the other day. She is now out of prison, sober. You know, everything's good. I spoke to her, but she would walk past us, take pictures of us looking and searching from 10, 15 feet away from us, take pictures with her cell phone. And an hour later, after she vacated the scene, she would send those to us. And she had a disease where she had no hair. And so it was the middle of the winter. It was like January or February. So there's snow on the ground. Everyone's big hooded parkas, coats, bundled up. But she would change her wigs. She would change the color of her hair. So we never knew what color of hair we were looking for. We hunted her forever. And the judge, I went to court the morning that we caught her. I went to the court and the judge said, you have 5 days to catch her or bring me money. And so at this point, this is months into it, months of paying bounty hunters, stakeout food. I'm thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in the hole looking for this girl. Mind you, she only paid me $100. So I'm way upside down. We get a tip. One of her close compadres called us and asked how much we were paying for her capture. And my boss said, I'll give X amount of dollars. And he said, okay, she's here. And we had heard multiple times, she's here. We didn't get excited anymore. It was more of a dread. We were just like, oh, we're going to go spend all night looking for this girl again. We get there. And so, you know, Anthony, right? Sniping. It was his next door neighbor. Like literally across the cul-de-sac from him is where we were at 3 a.m. this night. We bang on the door. Nobody's answering. And my boss had been fed up with it. He was about to have to pay a bunch of money. And he's like, this person, there's enough money on the line for us to have to pay and enough money on the line for this snitch to gain if she actually is in here. I don't think they're going to lie about her being in here. He was like, I'm ready to just boot this door. If I get arrested for burglary, come bail me out. You know, but we called the local law enforcement and they have been hunting for her also for their own reasons. And the gang task force unit came down and they were banging on the door so hard they were loosening the front door hinges, like banging with nightsticks and batons. They were loosening the hinges out of the wall. In the back window, they banged on the back window so hard they cracked the back window and knocked the blinds off the window. So we finally get the landlord on the phone. It's 3 a.m. and he comes and unlocks the door. We all rush. There's probably 15 of us that are hunting her. We all rush in. We're all trying to fit in this little studio area, trying to fit in this back bedroom. We finally get the bedroom. And so this is the weirdest thing. She was in a back bedroom under a bed, asleep, but the bedroom door had 3 deadbolts on the inside and a padlock lock from the outside. The only way into that room was through the window. She was going out the window, and then when she'd come back in, she'd lock the window so nobody could get in behind her. But we caught her, and that was like the biggest just feeling of relief. Hey, we got her. No one got hurt. Everything's good. But that was the longest bounty hunt I've ever dealt with. And it was the most nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. People don't understand. I think courts, there is a certain time frame.
Yes.
Put on people or put on you as a bondsman to be able to recover somebody, or you guys are out potentially a lot of money.
Yes.
And I think that's where you get into collection from a cosigner, where you go, where you would collect that debt from a cosigner, because now you guys are in the whole, you talked about it, all these hours of, food, gas, manpower, all those things.
And the
so
biggest
at that point, that's when you would go get the money from a cosigner.
Well, and the
Collateral.
biggest misconception of yes, in a perfect world, I would be like, okay, well, this bond cost me, I had to pay a snitch $500. I had $200 in fuel. I had all these expenses. Go to a cosigner and say, let's use you for example. Okay, Chris, you're my cosigner. This is this, and this. You owe me this. Write me a check, or I'm going to take you to court and sue you. It'd be nice if they'd be like, yes, here's the check. That never happens, ever.
Right.
And a lot of people think, oh, she put up the house. The house is like, that was the biggest thing on Dog Day Bounty Hunter. Oh, you leveraged your house. We're going to take your house. No, that's not how that works. Now, if I wrote $1 million bond for a capital murder and someone put up their $500,000 house as collateral, yes, I could get a court to award me the house, but I don't just get to walk into somebody's house and say, get out, I own your house.
Right.
That's not how that's going to work. But what we do is I would go put a lien against the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that property is ever sold or auctioned off, my debt gets satisfied before any doling out of money.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that again, but that goes along the same thing. You're not getting any immediate satisfaction to the closure of that, because that could be years or that could be never.
Yeah. I'm afraid to look in my books and see how much I'm owed. Of money. I did not join bail bonds to get rich. That's for sure.
Yeah. Jimmy, you got anything?
Yeah, I do actually. Well, let me go ahead and get to one of our listeners' questions first. I guess to wrap this up, I think Corey wanted to ask about what was she wearing when she got caught. Was there anything else to that story?
Her
Birthday suit.
And she was not a looker.
Yeah.
I will share with you, Chris, privately the picture.
Oh man.
Not of her.
Oh,
not.
Don't need to
No.
see it.
No, I have her after we've have her dressed and going to court or going to jail.
Ah, gotcha.
I have the clothed version, but my eyes saw the unclothed.
I'm sure it was
and there's some nightmares you just can't wake up from.
No.
made the whole chase worth it.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Hey Dale, I wanted to back up a little bit and try to get some clarification on people like me who are kind of unfamiliar. So are all bondsmen bounty hunters, or do they typically hire a service to do that aspect?
In Missouri, so I can only speak for select other states and my state because that's all I know. But in Missouri, they're dual licensed. So as soon as you become a bondsman, you are also licensed as a bounty hunter. And once but you can also have a single license, which is you're only a bounty hunter.
Okay.
So it's not like you become a bounty hunter, you're a bondsman. No, you have to be very qualified and have a general, and the general has to have so much millions of dollars in liability to hire you on to be a bondsman. But then you also can act as your own bounty hunter also. Whereas if you want to go be a bounty hunter, you don't have to have a general. You don't have to have someone sign your paperwork for you. You can just go take the class, take the test, take your fingerprints, and be licensed.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, because you mentioned that, you thought initially that you would have to put up the money, if somebody bounces. So I guess I think you may have covered it, but can you explain how that typically plays out?
Okay, so clarify a little bit what you mean by that.
I guess I'm not even sure how that all works, but let's say somebody commits a crime and they have a $20,000 bond.
Mm-hmm.
What typically happens is you were saying that 10%. Let's just use 10% as an example. They actually have to put up 10% of that bond.
Okay, so let's say I already got it. So let's say it was a $20,000 bond. For a $20,000 bond, I'm gonna probably require collateral, be it firearms, which Chris knows I've gotten a couple firearms from some bonds, a vehicle, property, something is going to back up that 20,000, because I don't care who you are. Not a lot of people in this day and age have 20 grand in the bank. They're just, it's a real thing. Not a lot of people have it. But you call me, you get a bond. I approve you through my system. It's a flat $2,000 that we agree. Your cosigner is your mom. Your mom has a good job. Your mom makes money. On paper, she's a good cosigner. But let me clarify this. Almost no one is a good cosigner, because I don't care who you are. Let's say it's your child and a bounty hunter is coming after your child. You're a crappy cosigner because you're not going to give up your child. I mean, that's just the way it is. But the cosigner then gives me the $2,000, which is 10% of that 20,000.
That's basically your fee, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's
that
what
is
you.
my.
That's your. Yeah, that's what you say. You know, that is good enough for you to basically put up the 20,000 for them to get out.
Yeah, well, so I don't put up any money per
Right.
se in the beginning. What I do is we have these things called powers, and they're essentially checks. In the very nitty gritty of it, they're checks. And I write a check out to, let's just say, the Boone County Courthouse. I write a check out to the Boone County Courthouse guaranteeing that Jane Doe is going to appear on March the 10th at 9 a.m. for court. If she does not, I will produce her, or I will produce the $20,000.
Yeah.
But
So
ultimately, she's responsible for the whole $20,000 eventually.
No. So if she goes to court and it's a perfect bond, great cosigner, she didn't do it, it gets thrown out, whatever, she goes through it and completes it. She gives me the $2,000 up front for the bond. She goes to all her court dates. She completes it. She gets sentenced to jail, probation, whatever it is. She's done. She doesn't owe me another dime. She doesn't owe me anything. The only time people owe me money after the first initial contact is A, if they don't pay it all, like if they don't pay the whole amount I'm requesting up front, or B, they incur fees along the way, as in they run and I have to chase them and that kind of thing. Or there's a forfeiture, which I've had happen. I couldn't find the person in ample amount of time, and I have to pay the court that money. Now, if I have to pay the court that $20,000, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not paying that $20,000. Someone else is paying that $20,000.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. So if a court orders somebody to pay $20,000 for bond, that fee actually is essentially for you. What they, I guess, they license you to obtain, but you're only obligated to take 10%, or so, differs in certain states.
Okay, so they level a level. They say, all right, her bond is $20,000. That's how much. 20,000 cash or surety is the terms we use. So her family or her can pay $20,000 cash to the court and get out of jail and not have to deal with a bondsman. Now, the benefit of doing it that way is when your case is done, you plead guilty, everything's done, you get the whole $20,000 back minus any fees or fines that are assessed by the court. They get their whole kit and caboodle back. They get a check from the courthouse.
Gotcha.
You use a bondman, you don't get any money back. That $2,000 you paid me in the beginning is my money.
Sure.
You never get that back.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
$2,000 is much better than 20 grand. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to tie this back together with today's politics and have you maybe help clarify some things that we hear in the news about bail reform and how they're eliminating things like cash bail, and what does that mean? For you and for, I guess, the state of our crime, situation. What do you think?
So,
now, before you answer that, Dale, I read the Missouri Bond Reform Act, or whatever they call it, and it's convoluted as hell. First of all, so yeah, even reading it didn't really make much sense to me. But maybe you can explain it.
So, well, I mean, I can't explain it as in the act itself, like the actual written of it, because I read it, I got bored, and I put it away. I mean, it's contradictory in the writing of it, and it's written in such a way. My brother-in-law is a politician, and he explained it to me. The reason they write acts and propositions like that is so the normal Joe Blow and normal people don't read the whole thing. They get confused, they get fed up, and then they don't read it. They either vote for it or they don't vote for it. But the whole reason for bail reform is they are thinking that because John Doe got arrested for sticking up a liquor store and his bond's $5,000 cash surety, why was he sticking up the liquor store in the first place? Because he was broke. He had no money. How's he going to come up with the $500 to get out? Let's let him out for free. You know, that's bail reform. Is they essentially let out the criminals on their own recognizance, which means they say, okay, we know you messed up, we know you broke the law, but we're going to trust that you're going to come back to court. Here you go, get out of jail free.
I think a confusing part of that to me is when they're saying they're eliminating cash bail options. So what I immediately thought was like they're making it more difficult for people to get out. What's the point of saying cash bail? What's the difference?
Well, cash bail means they are handing over cash to a bondsman. Now, states like Illinois has eliminated bail bondsmen completely. It is illegal to bounty hunt. It is illegal to advertise. It is illegal to do anything in Illinois as a bondsman. But they still have 10% cash bail, which means, but the difference is that money goes straight to the court. Are you muted?
Yeah, I was just saying that means they pay directly to the court.
Yeah. They pay directly to the court that 10%.
Which we all know in Chicago, you know, the courts and the politicians there are all legitimate. So that money probably goes exactly where it needs to.
Where it needs to go.
Yeah.
But in Missouri, so I won't take too long on this. I was hunting a girl in Jeff City, Missouri, and she had a $6,000 cash surety bond. I hunted her for 3 months. Judge is yelling at me every time I go and see the judge. Hey, you need to get this girl in custody. She's a danger to society. She's going to hurt somebody. You need to get her arrested, get her arrested, get her arrested. I get her caught, put her back in jail. She has court the very next morning with that judge for a bond hearing. Bail reform is just making its waves into the counties. He lets her out on OR for free. And then I go to court for somebody else, and he has the gumption to ask me, hey, have you seen so-and-so? No, that's not my problem. Because the thing a lot of Joe Blow citizens and normal people you may know. So do you know who paid? So the big thing we say is if someone gets a warrant and they're on our bond, we go and get them with no cost to the taxpayers. I don't know why it keeps muting you.
No, I muted myself. I just coughed, but
I was like,
yeah, no, that makes absolutely no sense because it is a cost to the taxpayer because the cost to the taxpayer is law enforcement then has to go.
Oh, no. That's what I'm saying is when we as a bonding company, when I go out to go catch somebody, I don't cost the taxpayer.
Right.
Anymore.
Gotcha.
But the taxpayers don't pay my salary. So this is what ends up happening. And I've had the amount of warrants in Boone County overall is in the hundreds. I don't let warrants. I have a whiteboard that sits on my wall. I try not to let warrants sit on my wall for longer than a couple weeks. Period. But the problem you have is you have a county. I don't know how it is where you guys live, but are your county sheriffs paid a lot of money?
No, not tons.
Well, the reason I'm getting to it is, let's say Joe Blow got a warrant, got an OR, and didn't go to court. Obviously, he's not going to go to court because there's no one to hold him responsible. He then gets a warrant for his arrest, and that falls onto the county sheriff's desk. Oh, he's got a warrant. Are they going to go out and spend countless nights bounty hunt or looking for this person?
Nope.
No, they're going to hope that they pull him over in a traffic stop and get him arrested on something else.
Right.
And then that's taxpayers paying more money, paying more salaries, paying more everything. But what the nitty and gritty of it is, with bail reform, no one is held accountable for them running, not even them.
Yeah.
Whereas when they have a bondsman, it is the bondsman's responsibility to go out and spend sleepless nights and go catch that fugitive and bring them back to justice. There's actually someone looking for them. Whereas on ORs, there's no one looking for them.
So it sounds like you guys just need to start bounty hunting from like 7 a.m. to like 6 p.m.
I'll send you the bill.
Yeah. So yeah, on that with bail reform, you know, and I think, and you may have a different view of it, but you know, obviously crime is, because of these things, because of these bail reform, and we just saw Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, just got beat in her election, and the primary reason that everyone's saying that she lost was because she is so lax on crime. She's even too progressive for the most progressive, and which is scary that she's that far left. But that's what they're saying. She lost, and she's not even in the runoff, so she's done no matter what. No matter what, next month she's done.
Yeah,
and you know, that's the reason that they're saying, because so it's interesting to me that even cities like Chicago that have just horribly massive crime statistics, and we're not even talking just about murders. I'm talking about robberies, carjackings, you know, probably just, you know, petty theft. All these states and all these cities that have made it like illegal for police to arrest somebody if it's not under, or if it's below $1,000 that they stole.
They just put out a summons and say, here you go, come back to court.
That even the people in these progressive cities are starting to figure out. I saw today, I think it was San Clemente, California, Walmart, who, you know, there's a Walmart in every shitty city in the country. Walmart's closing all their stores in San Clemente, California, because of this problem, because nobody's being arrested, because nobody's being held accountable. So I think we're starting to see a turn away from this woke progressive, at least on the crime statistic part, or the crime part. We're starting to see a turn from this progressive ideology, and hopefully it continues. Hopefully it starts kicking, but the pendulum starts swinging back the other way.
Well, the reason I'll even mention this is so I can show this, because you can go look at this your own. Anyone can. It's public record. So the reason I'll show it. So this guy right here got arrested last night. It's just on the 0700 report for our county. It's not even going to show up. But so he had 4 counts of failure to appear on possession of controlled substance charges, which in our county, if you get, it's possession of controlled substance except marijuana. So he got caught with cocaine, heroin, or meth, and 4 counts, mind you, 4 times of these charges, and their FTAs on those charges, and he got released on his own recognizance as of 8 a.m. this morning. I mean,
so what's your guess as to what he was doing at 7:45 this morning?
I mean, I'm just going through the whole list of people that got arrested last night, and 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 7 got released on their own recognizance.
Yeah.
They didn't have to
20 minutes later, they weren't doing the same exact thing that they had been doing.
Yeah. There's been multiple accounts in multiple cities. The biggest, if you want to know stuff about bail reform, look up New Mexico. New Mexico is very big on bail reform, and they are regretting that they did that. They eliminated cash bail solely and 100%, where now their bond that used to be $1,000, 10% to a bondsman is now like $500, but they have to pay it directly to the court. But the amount of the I can't even, I've never say this word right.
Recidivism.
Recidivism. Yeah, that word. That happens. There was a guy, I can't remember what state it was, but he got arrested for a non-violent altercation with his baby mama, got released on his own recognizance because it was a non-violent domestic, and he went back less than 24 hours and killed and slaughtered her whole family.
Yeah, I actually remember reading not too long ago in it was either New York or New Jersey. A woman, there was a videotape that got released of him beating her.
Mm-hmm.
He got arrested. It had to be New Jersey.
Yeah.
They released him within 24 hours, and within 48 hours of the entire incident happening, he had gone back to the house and basically executed her in the living room because he got arrested.
Before anyone comes for me or DMs me, I'm not saying because they pay a bond, they're not going to go reoffend. I'm not saying that. The guy that killed his girlfriend probably had that in his mind if he had to post a bond or not. He was going to go kill her. But it's the fact of things need to be more clearly investigated, because so my brother got ran over. I've talked to you, Chris, about it. He got hit while flagging for a construction company, and he got ran over, which in almost any other state would be deemed attempted murder with a vehicular homicide. The guy got arrested for fleeing the scene of an accident, and his bond was $1,500 cash or surety. So the guy permanently hurts my brother, where my brother has constant back pain for the rest of his life, and the guy had to pay $150 to get out of jail.
Yeah.
There's a lot that needs to be worked out. And my boss, Chuck Telly, he is a very big person. He's spent millions of his own personal money in legislature in Missouri and other states to try to overturn bail reform. Yeah. Where we need to go back. And the biggest thing is, it's not only just bail reform, is there needs to be more regulation in our industry. Almost anyone that has a pulse, doesn't have a criminal record, and has the $500 to get licensed can be licensed as a bondsman. That's why there's such an overflow of them. I believe there needs to be, and I say this even being one, I'd be one myself, is there needs to be a more stringent requisitions to be a bondsman. You need to either have former law enforcement experience, you need to have more schooling, a criminal justice degree, or go to school for an associate's in bail bond. There needs to be a more education standpoint on it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that earlier. So do you have a law enforcement background?
Not exactly law enforcement. I was in the military, and I've worked with law enforcement pretty much. I've been paid to carry a gun on my hip since I was 18. Let's just put it that way. It's not necessarily in the capacity of a law enforcement officer. I've done private security, being a bouncer, being bodyguard, armed security, bondsman. But we have a very well oiled and very good working relationship with law enforcement. There's not a lot of law enforcement that hate us. They hate security guards more.
Yeah, no, I was actually gonna ask you that. Like, what has it been your experience that more times than not, law enforcement is favorable to you, or have you seen that they more try to avoid, including you? And obviously, when it meets their needs, they're going to try to include you because you don't have to follow the same rules.
I've had both things on both sides of the fence. I've called law enforcement and been like, "Hey, I've got John Doe is at 123 Candy Lane. That's the other thing I forgot to mention in the very beginning is we have to get the certified copy of the bond, and then we have to notify law enforcement dispatch every stop we make. So if I'm going to the hotel at the corner of Broadway to search, I have to call dispatch and tell them, hey, I'm going here, here, and here. I will call at the next location change. And the reason we do that is because my company doesn't take chances. We wear bulletproof vests. They're all decked out in patches, and from a distance, we look like cops. You know, we are all wearing bulletproof vests, carrying around shotguns, AR-15s, and they have us notified law enforcement because if you're in a dispatch and you get a phone call, hey, there's 10 guys out here with assault rifles kicking in this door, you're not going to think bail enforcement. You're going to think someone's about to get robbed. You know, there's something bad going on. But we've had both where I've called law enforcement, hey, we're doing this, this, and this. Can you notify the local Leos in the area? Yeah, good job. Have a good day. Call us if you need anything. But then I've also had them, I did not have this personally. I had one of my colleagues do it. They went to Mississippi to hunt, and they called law enforcement, told them they were going, and the cop said, we don't suggest that. We don't even go down there. Like, stay away.
Well, but that's good. At least they were warning you.
And then I had one on the Stacy, the big hunt I went on, where she was in an area of the county that's it was right in the middle of 3 counties. So I called dispatch, and they said, oh, that's not us. You need to call them. So I called them. Oh, that's not us. You need to call them. Oh, that's not, and it was just a big circle. No one would take jurisdiction over this area, and pretty much said, you're beat. Don't come in our county. But we've had both. But for 90% of our interactions with law enforcement, they're pleasant.
All right, so a couple of the comments here. GD, hey, thanks for watching. Glad that you made it in. And then I'm not going to read Corey's comment. That's just
no.
But well, so that's really awesome, and I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. We're going to talk, Jimmy and I. You're more than welcome to stay and join in the conversation. Jimmy and I are going to talk a little bit about some of the goings on that we have.
That's fine.
Politically, I guess you could say. I already mentioned one, Lori Lightfoot. She's out on her ass, which the country. I actually think that they should make that a federal holiday. I'm just like so happy that she is gone, because she is the worst of the worst. I mean, we talk about things all the time about how we disagree with people's perspectives and their political views on things, and that's one thing. It's one thing to disagree politically about. Maybe we have the same goal that we want to get something done, but we certainly have a different way of doing it, or a way of getting to that part. But she is just so far out in left field, and it moves into the whole Gavin Newsom thing, where he's starting to turn, if you haven't noticed, in his speeches and stuff Gavin Newsom's the governor of California, who I fully believe is going to run for president here, or announce that he's going to run for president here shortly. He's going to primary Biden, or Biden's just going to fade away into the sunset and not run. Who knows? But he's starting to change his tune, because he's been one of the most restrictive governors on the Second Amendment in the state of California that's ever existed. And now all of a sudden he's kind of backing down. And by backing down, I mean, he's giving up. So normally we'll use the Bruin decision that came out of the Supreme Court about possession of a firearm outside of your home, which is the crux of that case. And before he was, like New Jersey, New York, Illinois, and I think one other state immediately released another bill, or signed another bill into law in those states that completely went against the Bruin decision. And California, he didn't do that. What he did was he went out and had a public hearing or a press conference and said, well, it looks like we lost on this one. So he's not even trying to fight it anymore. And why is he doing that? He's doing that because politically on a national level, he has to seem more mainstream. He can't be the governor of California and get away with all the things that he does in California because the rest of the country isn't going to buy off on that shit. Dale's getting mauled by a dog. So he's starting to bend a little bit. And please don't think for a second that I believe he's going to bend permanently. He's going to bend to garner votes across the rest of the country in a national election. And then he's going to go right back to what he's always been. And we talk about the chameleons all the time. You know, they're going to go out during an election year. They're going to go out and they're going to say everything that sounds great. I mean, Joe Biden did exactly the same thing. They're going to go out and tell you, oh, I'm for this, I'm for that, I'm for this, and we really need to do this. But then once they get elected, it's right back to the same bullshit that they were pandering before or that they were doing before they actually took office. The other thing that's very interesting is the ATF rule on SBRs. That rule has now been challenged by 17 states and I think 13 congressmen have actually written an amicus brief. So anyone who doesn't know, an amicus brief is a brief written by a party that's not actually associated with the lawsuit, but it's an additional brief that they provide to the court as a submission on one side or the other. So I think 13 congressmen, which we know most of our congressmen and senators, a good portion of them are lawyers anyway. They've written an amicus brief in support of this lawsuit by 17 states, 17 state AGs. And the Supreme Court itself they're not going to buy off on this shit. I don't understand why. The problem is the appellate courts. So this is going to go to a court. The court, of course, they're going to bring it to a court in a district where it's most favorable to them. That court's going to find that they have no standing because that's usually the initial, hey, let's get this out of our courthouse. It's going to get thrown out. Then they're going to send it to an appeals court. Hopefully, the appeals court is in a district, and it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't have to be this way because the appeals courts know what the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin is. They already know. It's already been written. They're going to send it to that. And so what should happen at the appellate level is at the appellate level, the appellate court should say, hey, the Supreme Court's already ruled on this. You guys are clearly outside the bounds of what the Supreme Court said in Bruin. So your laws that you've put into place are unconstitutional based on already set precedent in the Supreme Court. Depending on which circuit they get, if it goes to the Ninth Circuit, which is the most liberal of the appellate courts, the Ninth Circuit, excuse me, most likely is going to say, "Oh no, we agree. You can go ahead and put your laws into effect." And then, of course, then it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to be like, "Hey, dumbasses over there at the Ninth Circuit, we've already ruled on this. Your shit doesn't matter. We're going to overturn you again because that's what we do, most of the time when you send up bullshit like this." And then it's going to go away. But it's the time, it's the amount of time that process takes that they're counting on, and that gives them time to rework portions of it that they can then try to make favorable to the court decisions, and those kinds of things. But it's back on the SBR rule. So the argument is The ATF doesn't have authority to make law. They're an agency of the government. They are not a legislative branch. Go ahead, Dale.
Well, also the ATF is in itself alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It is not their job to regulate accessories.
Yeah.
And a bump stock versus a shoulder brace, that is exactly that. It's an accessory. It's not part of the gun.
Right.
So, and that's the biggest thing. And a lot of people I'm talked this over with is the ATF should have no authority over silencers, muzzle brakes, right. Magazines. Those are all accessories. They're not the firearm itself.
Yeah. And so that's the argument. That's the argument that's being made right now in court by 17 states is that, hey, this rule is just that. It's a rule that they would love to enforce, but it doesn't have the backing of law because there's not the federal legislature did not legislate an act making these things illegal. So the ATF doesn't have the authority to just arbitrarily create a rule and act as if it's law. In other words, the ATF should not be able to go out and try to enforce a rule that they created.
Well, that was my second question is because they're saying if you are caught in possession of an SBR brace or even as me and you have talked before, even the buffer tube that has the notches in it, you are now
right
illegally in possession of a firearm and you're going to be charged with a felony. If it's not a law, how are you getting charged with anything?
Right. And that's the issue that's at hand. So I think this whole thing started with the Las Vegas shooting with the bump stocks, where the ATF made a rule and they knew that they weren't going to be able to stand on that rule because they hadn't actually legislated. Now, I think, and I may be wrong on this, but I think that since then, I think there was something legislatively that was done as far as bump stocks specifically. And I have to go back and look that up, but I think that that's what happened with bump stocks. So I think bump stocks have been legislated, but the argument is the ATF is not a legislature. You have no authority, especially when you're talking about a constitutionally protected activity, i.e. the Second Amendment, to just create some rule out of thin air and then think that you have the ability to go enforce it. So we'll see what happens with that, but it's definitely been challenged. And we'll see what happens. Jimmy, you got?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty nuanced topic, and it just really makes me go back to why are we arguing about this? This is something silly that really was established a long time ago. And maybe I'm kind of curious about Dale's opinion on this, but there's been a lot of talk about secessions and national divorce. And so, with arguments like these, going back and forth all the time and dealing with the Ninth District Court that's never going to change their mind on, on this kind of crap, and they're going to do their own thing, is it time for something like that to be pushed forward? And the reason why I wanted to ask Dale is because you're obviously in a different part of the country, what's the sense, what's the feeling there? Do you feel like there's so much divide that there's really no common ground anymore? And what do you think can be done about it?
I think at this point, nothing can be done about it. It's a scale. You know what I mean? It's a scale, and it's tipped so far to one side at this point. I don't know if there's a lot of people, and I understand a lot of them are online extremists and that kind of thing. But the word boogaloo gets thrown around a lot, and I don't know, probably 90% of the people that throw that word around ain't about that life. But, it's just succeeding from everything and everything. I don't know. There was big talks of Texas doing that here recently. Obviously, it never happened. I don't know if I'm sure people will talk about it, but.
Well, and if anything like that, were to happen, I mean, essentially, it's going to be like a civil war scenario, which I don't know how that extensive that is, where people are actually fighting, but at least where if a state like Texas, which is a pretty big state, represents a large part of the country, what they would end up doing is not just seceding themselves, but trying to get together with several other states that kind of hold the same primary beliefs and just say, look, we're gonna run things this way and regulate ourselves this way. I don't know, back in the Civil War days, and when the North had something to say about that, and said that that's not going to stand, I don't know how that's going to go. But
Well, a lot of
I don't know.
people talk about Civil War, when the whole COVID thing broke out and there were talks and whispers of martial law in the streets, and stuff like that. And they're like, well, this is going to be civil war if they try to take our guns. A lot of people aren't taking into account is the Civil War happened so long ago. Is a civil war now would be so bloody and it would be such a big massacre that I don't think there would be anything to fight for. The advancements in military hardware, all the stuff on the black market that the big players can get and stuff like that is, I mean, people would be launching bombs at each other in the United States. There wouldn't be anything left to fight for.
Yeah, it's true. I don't really see anything like an actual war breaking out among the states. I mean, we all know like who the side that's going to be able to fight anyway.
Well, and I look at it like this: when we talk about, I think we use the word civil war, but I don't think that I don't think that that's the mean. I think it would be more civil disobedience, as far as, yeah, that's great that you've made this law, but I'm not following that law.
Basically,
and when you have
reacting
millions
against
of people that are not following a law, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do when 50 million people or 100 million people just decide, yeah, that's great. Hey, here you go. You made a law. I'm not following it. And what are you going to do?
So
what are you going to do,
what you're
local
saying,
PD?
What you're saying is not civil. People use the word civil war very loosely,
Right.
but you're not saying we're going to be fighting against another state. It's going to be all of us that are fed up fighting against a tyrannical government. It's,
yes.
Yeah. And the best way to do that is to have, how many, I think there's 100 million or 150 million gun owners in this country.
I think the last stat was every household in America had 5 or 6 guns. The guns outweigh Americans.
Yeah, there's over, like 400 million guns or something to that effect.
There's 400 million guns and there's only 360 million people in America.
Max, yeah. Well,
no, and that's the stat that spoke that said there was over so many registered firearms. That's not taking into account the unregistered firearms.
Right. So I think that when somebody says civil war, and of course the politicians are going to use, they're going to use that as their buzzword. Oh my God, civil war! They want civil war. What people are talking about is civil disobedience. In other words, I'm not going to follow your law, and 120 million of us are not going to follow your law. So you can go ahead and try to build jails and prisons that are going to fit 120 million people. Good luck with that. Or you're just going to deal with the fact that some of us just aren't going to fly with your bullshit.
Look at the comments. I like Jason's comment. I agree. I think your boat hit my boat, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know where we were fishing at, but you need to learn to drive that thing because we lost everything in that accident.
Exactly. Well, hey, I don't want to keep people. We've been on here for an hour and a half. It's a little bit longer than we normally go, but Dale's been a great guest, and Dale, we really appreciate it. We hope to have you back on here again sometime.
Oh yeah, I'd love it. I'd do it every weekend if you want me to. We don't have to talk about bail bonds every weekend.
You're not going to be able to do it every weekend if you're out bounty hunting, dude. So come on.
Hey, I'll make time. They can run while I'm on here talking to you.
Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on the show. And again, we'd love to have you back anytime. And if anything big happens, let me know, and we can bring you back on and talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love that.
All right, cool.
Appreciate it, Dale.
All right, everybody. Hey, that's the show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to try to do these lives. I think I like them. What about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I like the interaction. I definitely like to hear what people are thinking. It definitely gets my mind going, and like to know what people are talking about. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff I can really go hard on and get fired up about. So that's what.
Well, and I think it's an easier venue to get guests. So that also, and anybody who's on the stream listening, or who's going to listen to it afterwards, because that seems to be the way that it goes. You know, even though we have a certain amount of people that are viewing it on whatever platform, after the fact, we had a lot of people listen to it. So that was really great. But if you want to be a guest and you have a specific topic that you want to come on and talk about, send us an email. Our email address is agpodcast13@yahoo.com. I didn't take the time to put it up on a banner tonight, but agpodcast, the numbers 13@yahoo.com. And we would love to have you on here to discuss it. And particularly if you disagree with anything we said, because you're really the ones we want to talk to. So, hey, that's our show for tonight. We'll be back on Tuesday with our next episode of Trash Talking Tuesday, and we will see you then.